What's up, everyone? Arctic here, bringing you guys a brand new running ranked episode. This is episode number 3 of Gears of War Judgment, and today I am talking about the Hammerburst. So I'm going to give a little prerequisite to this story and let you guys know at the playtest, the Gears of War Judgment playtest in October, I actually spent a lot of time with the Hammerburst and offered up quite a bit of feedback on the behavior of the weapon in general. And I basically used Gears 2 and Gears 3 as kind of like my baseline of how I felt the gun should have been on those two games. And seeing its iteration on Gears Judgment has me a lot happier. It's still very lethal, and in the right hands, it is still just as deadly as it was in the previous two games. So my issues with the Gears of War 2 and Gears of War 3 Hammerburst had to do with recoil. I didn't really particularly care how fast players fan the trigger, which basically just means hit the trigger in rapid succession to get that full semi-auto burst. You know, a lot of people thought the players that did that had modded controllers. Reality, most of them probably didn't, but that's neither here nor there. But my main issue with Gears of War 2 and Gears of War 3 was the lack of recoil on the Hammerburst, and how, despite the tracking involved with the Hammerburst and how few players actually used it, because in order to hit the trigger pretty fast, you still have to be kind of skilled to be able to hit that trigger and track your target at the same time. So that kind of made the barrier to entry on the Hammerburst a little bit higher, but the lack of recoil made it very easy to use if you could do those two things: track your weapon and fan the trigger. And for as fast as it shot, you would think there would be more recoil, and it just wasn't. And so with Gears of War 3, when Gears of War 3 came around, I was really hoping that Epic would add more recoil, and I think they did slightly, but it was still a very abusable weapon online. And that's one of the reasons, and you guys have probably heard this multiple times in some of my previous commentaries, I thought the Hammerburst was probably the most overpowered weapon to use because of how fast you could hit the trigger, the accuracy it had at hipfire when doing that, and the lethality. So those three things made it, in my opinion, a more offensive weapon than the Retro, which was commonly the one that everyone kind of pointed out, and they're like, hey, this weapon, it's really OP. But when you think about the Hammerburst, it was good at far more ranges than the Retro, and could drop you literally faster than the Retro could in some situations, if not all. So those are my issues in previous games. So where I'm at with Gears of War Judgment and the Hammerburst, like I said, I feel like it's in a very good spot. When you fan the trigger as fast as you can, there is a huge kick on the recoil. And when I say huge, it's rather significant, not to the point where you're like, oh my god, I can't control it. It's just, it is a significant kick that you have to say, okay, I kind of have to pace myself with this, or I just have to be able to control this enough to hit all of my shots. So the reward for someone that likes the Hammerburst, I actually really like the Hammerburst itself, but it was just never rewarding to me in order to get a kill. So the reward there feels much better for my, I guess, personality type of player. And I actually had a few people on both Twitter and actually in my YouTube comments ask me to use the Hammerburst because they felt like the Hammerburst recoil was broken. And so I said, okay, I'll try it out and see if Epic made any changes from the time I played at the playtest. And it feels pretty damn good. I'm not going to say that the recoil isn't significant, because I feel like it's there and you notice it, but it's a very manageable weapon. And I'd say in the maybe 15 or 16 games that I've used the Hammerburst in, maybe only 1 or 2 I went negative, and that's when I was playing by myself. The rest of them were pretty monstrous games, and that's dealing with people that were both Hammerbursting against me, using the Lancer, using the Gnasher, two-piecing, doing all of those things. And it was just a matter of where I was positioning myself and how I would react to players that were trying to play whatever weapon they were using in that specific manner. So I really think it's an excellent weapon. It's really good at taking people down that aren't paying attention. So like if you get a back shot on someone or someone standing on cover, you don't see them. It's really good to use. I think the hardest or most difficult situation is probably dealing with Nasher players that break that plane where it's too close, at which point, and this is kind of why I think the two-piece is probably so prevalent right now, for rifle users, if they break a certain plane, it's pretty difficult to kind of adjust to what they're doing. So you kind of have to either melee, run away, throw an ink, smoke, something to deter them from that forward progress and allow you to continue to create space so that you can become more lethal than them in whatever situation they kind of encounter you in. I don't like using it in like closed corridors. I usually make sure I have a few exit pathways whenever I am hammer bursting. And I also, like I said, try to keep my distance from players. I feel like it's really good. There's like a close range that it shines. It's like at the edge of the shotgun range where you're just in range to get hit by it enough to be like, oh man, it's kind of scary, but not enough to be like, oh, I need to run. That's the best way I can describe the maximum distance I like to or the shortest distance rather I like to play at with the Hammerburst. And then it's really good at like this at the end barrier of the medium range. So right before you get to long range shooting with the Hammerburst, I feel like it's also very good. So I try to kind of pace myself between those two areas, if you guys can kind of understand what I mean by that. Whenever I am in a game with the Hammerburst, I'm definitely looking at more spots that I can better utilize it on each map. There's obviously not a lot of maps to do that on, but I'm looking forward to what new maps will bring and certain situations I can kind of find myself in, whether it be by an ammo crate in a window, kind of, roaming around. I do that on streets a little bit. I roam around between books and steelworks up on that roof. With the Marks and the Hammerburst actually, and I found that to be pretty effective. Kind of looking down towards the pork chop, that alley there, and on the other side, trying to look around by the billboard down at the crate. So streets is probably my favorite map. So that's probably where I can most relate to how I kind of use the Hammerburst. And generally speaking, like I said, I feel like it's really rewarding. The recoil on it is in a good spot. So I hope you guys enjoyed this commentary, and until the next time, guys, I will catch you later. Peace.